Hello everybody, I'm just having my watermelon drink. And if you watch the other series, you kind of know where I'm about to go with this episode. And would I call it episode? I guess, yeah, I might as well, because I think that's what I've been putting down in the description anyway, like episode 1, 2, 3. So yeah, we'll just call it an episode. But if you missed the other ones, I'll put it down in the description below so you can get caught up. That's if you want to watch them, you can. If not, that's fine too. But anyway, leading into this one, as some of you know, I now have left the townhouse. My mother remarried after her divorce, and she's now with my stepdad, who they had a child with. He's my half-brother, but I don't like calling him that. To me, a brother is a brother, a sister is a sister, regardless of the circumstances. So he's my brother. But yeah, they ended up having a child, and I was in that townhouse from grade 1 to grade 3, and now I'm about to go into grade 4, and we're about to move again to another house. This house, though, it was extremely, oh my goodness, it was a gorgeous house, and it had a nice backyard that would lead into the woods. And I remember just being down in those woods and just my imagination, because I had such a huge imagination as a child. Even to this day, my husband always comments on it. That's just something about me and a quality. But I would just love just after school going down there, playing in the woods, exploring, adventuring, making up different stories. If any of you seen the movie Bridge to Terabithia,
that's impossible.
I was a lot like her. My imagination was, oh my goodness, absolutely like through the roof. The house was gorgeous, but I also knew just from past experiences not to get too comfy, because a part of me knew, okay, we're probably not going to be here long. Even when making friends, I wouldn't really get comfortable with making like good friends. I was quite a social child, and I'd love interacting with other kids, but I wouldn't get to the point where I'd make them like besties or really good friends. They'd be acquaintances. I remember this one girl I was kind of becoming close with. I wouldn't call her really a best friend because we were only in that house for a year and then we moved again. I was becoming close with this girl, and I remember my mother then ended up trying to set up sleepovers and things like that, and I absolutely hated sleepovers. I was never a fan, never did like them, felt extremely uncomfortable. It was just never my thing, was going to people's houses for a sleepover. And I'm pretty sure that was the last time and the last place I ever did, because I pretty much put my foot down with my mother like this. No, I can't do this whole sleepover situation stuff. It's just I would get really anxious and really uncomfortable. Me and her did become kind of close, but it wasn't the same closeness as the friend I had when I was in grade 1 to grade 3, because that friend, when I was at the townhouse, I made a really good friend from grade 1 to 3, and I'd go over to her house, and me and her would just listen to Britney Spears, be out in her backyard playing, hanging out, playing video games. I remember playing N64 at her house all the time, and we would just play like Mario Kart and stuff on it, which was like my happy place. I loved playing the N64. I was a little nerd like that as a kid. I liked games, and even board games me and her would always be playing. Like, we just got really close. And then I remember something happened where I witnessed her mother like slapping her or something, and I remember telling my mother, and that was it. I never got to hang out with her again, and it honestly tore me up inside, because we didn't really like sit down and discuss it, me and my mother. I told her what happened, and then that was it. It was just like cut and dry, done situation. And I was really upset about it, because I'd asked instead to go to this person's house after the fact, and my mother just said straight up, like, no, you're not going. And the friendship then slowly started to deteriorate, and then we moved again, and I just knew to keep myself guarded. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not making a close friend anymore after that, because we're only going to move for 1, and for 2, it seems like everybody I try to get close with ends up being taken away and out of my life. This girl, though, when we did move into, I guess I'll call it the nice house, this friend, when we were only there for a year, this friend, I'd hang out with her a nice bit. Like, I remember we made up like this circus with another friend up in their yard, because they had one of those like swing sets that had like the slide and the bars. It also had like the gymnastic hoops and stuff. So we'd like play circus, and I don't know, we were weird kids. But yeah, I remember like us sending out stuff to people in the neighborhood to come watch our circus and like try to charge people. But I was always like that, trying to make a bit of extra money, especially like to go to the store with my friends, because that was the only way I would get it, is if I worked for it. And I remember setting up lemonade and juice stands and go down to the corner store and try to sell lemonade and juice just so I can get some treats and snacks at the store there. But this friend was also the friend that introduced me to The Sims. And I had a computer before and I'd play like games. When we lived at the townhouse, that's where we got our first computer. It was the Windows 98, I'm pretty sure. Yes, the Windows 98 was our first computer. And we'd have like Storybook Weaver on it. I remember there was like an encyclopedia type game on it, and there was a game that like would try to teach you the alphabet and reading and stuff like that. But those 3 games I remember were the 3 I'd play on the computer. That was my first experience with a real video game, was The Sims, and oh my goodness, I used to love going to her house just to play it. To me, I love storytelling and just adventures, and just, if any of you watched the other videos, I absolutely loved my Barbies and having stories for my Barbies, which I still played with. So I'm in grade 4. I still, yes, at that time, played with my Barbies. But going to her house and playing The Sims, it was like the live action version of what I'd always play with my Barbies. Well, not the live action, but it was more three-dimensional. Is it three-dimensional? But anyway, it was a game that was the version of what I'd sit down and play. But even when we moved into the nice house, I remember going in the woods, like I said earlier, and just exploring and being very adventurous and Bridget Terabithia type feeling when I'd go in that backyard and play. But no, my step-grandmother was downstairs. She lived in the apartment down there. She never made anything awkward or uncomfortable, especially when we weren't her like biological grandchildren. She took us in. I have no bad memories with her. She was always amazing, always very supportive. She was nice. She gave me that piece I was missing when I was pretty much just uprooted from my real grandparents, and then that was something I missed and I needed, and I was glad to have that back, even though it was only for a year, because when we moved into another house, she moved into her own house and we were in ours. But yeah, even though it was for a year, but it was hard too, because where it was only a year and we got uprooted again after we left the nice house, but I'll get to that in the next video. It was just hard because it was like I would get comfortable in a situation and then we move again. I'd start to get close to people and slowly transition to let them in a little bit, and then we move again. So my step-grandmother, who I was starting to build a relationship with, that ended up getting ripped apart. This friend who I was playing The Sims with and just hanging out at her house, starting to build a relationship, that ended up being taken away and gone. I always end up wanting just normality and stability. When we moved into that house, that's when I really realized it. I just wanted normality and stability. I was so sick of moving. I was so sick of meeting people and then them leaving, or starting to get close to people and letting people in and then they're gone. I was just getting so fed up. But that house was also off the highway, and I was trying to go to the playground one day. To get to this playground where we lived, there was the off-ramp for the highway. We were just off the off-ramp for the busy highway, and cars would come off of that still flying at high speed. And I was trying to cross the road, and this car ended up hitting me. And Buddy got out of the car, this man, and he started freaking out and panicking. He ran into the door. I don't even recall him asking if I was okay. I just remember following him to my parents' house. He asked me where I lived, and I said right there, because the house was right behind me. And I just remember him like pretty much walking very fast to the front door and knocking on it, and I just followed, and he said, oh, she just crossed the road and she wasn't paying attention and I ended up hitting her and it's not my fault and she didn't look both ways and this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, dude, I live here. I've been notified by my mother about how fast those cars come off. I physically seen how fast those cars come off that highway, so I knew to look both ways. I went across that road thousands of times knowing you gotta look both ways because cars come off that highway fast. And this guy trying to blame me and putting the blame at me and say that I didn't look both ways and this, that, and the other thing. I was like, no, sir. And I even said to my mother, I was like, I look both ways. And my mom just asked me, she said, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. A few little scrapes, but I'm fine. And then she looked at the guy there and she's like, well, she's fine. And that was it. And then he was just like, okay. It was almost like he was trying to point the blame because he thought he was going to get in trouble or something. And my mother was just, I don't know, she just didn't want to deal with it type deal, I guess. And she just looked at me and was like, okay, you all right? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay, well, my daughter's all right. You can go on your way type deal. And I still went to the park after that. As soon as that guy left, I was like, yeah, I'm going to the playground. And it just so happened when I was at that playground, it was a very steep slide and there was a bar across the top. And I thought swinging on that bar would make me go down the slide a lot faster. And I started swinging on it and I ended up falling off the slide, getting a bloody nose. So that's that. But it's also the first place I remember taking a camcorder and videotaping. And that's where I started to really fall in love with taking videos. And I remember just taking a bunch of home videos, filming everything that we were doing, everything my little brother was doing when he was outside, like crawling on the grass and stuff, and because he was at that stage learning to walk, I'd want to videotape it. And that's where I really loved film. Now, I did mention before my first experience with a camera and taking pictures were the ones that you'd literally have to put in a dark space and the picture would show up after you clicked it because it would come out black. So you'd have to store it somewhere where it was dark so the picture would show up. That was my first experience with a camera. Absolutely loved it. And I was in kindergarten, grade 1. Grade 4 was my first real experience with like an actual camcorder. And oh my goodness. That moment on, I just always remember, I loved taking videos. I just enjoyed it so much. It was almost like a little outlet. Now, I knew I wasn't great at it and I was probably very shaky, terrible, and I'm probably still half terrible at it, but it was just something I'd like to do that just helped me just relax and just, I don't know, it was just my go-to. I just enjoyed it so much, just whatever it is with pictures and video, I don't know, it just, I think because as a child where I did like stories so much and being able to tell stories, that films and photos, you were able to do that as well, pretty well tell a story, and I really liked that, and that's probably why I enjoyed it so much. But yes, that was my first experience with an actual video camera, and oh my goodness, that was like, and the thing was, it wasn't even mine, it was my mother's and my stepdad's, but you'd always catch me with it, steady taking videos of whatever I could, whenever I could. I'd even get to the point where I'd start running out of tape and get upset because I ran out of tape because it used to be the wind-up tape in it. Literally then struggling and debating, okay, what can I tape over? Because I got more tape. This was before I realized you could start putting video on your computer. So that was before this. So I was at the age where it was still the dilemma of deciding, okay, what do I keep? What do I get rid of? I want to keep filming more. I was always with the camera though. This house was actually the first spot I got stung by a bee as well. And it wasn't at the house, it was actually at the school I attended at the time. We were outside at the playground and a bee ended up stinging me when I was outside because they had the dumpster bin pretty much right next to the playground, which doesn't make much sense if you think about it because you got a bunch of kids there playing and you've got like flies and bees and all that hanging around and wasps around this garbage bin right next to where the playground was. But yeah, like I said, I was only in that house for a year. And I remember this summer going into grade 5, that's when my parents told me that we were going to be moving again, my mother and my stepfather. And I just remember my heart sinking because I was actually kind of liking this house and I was kind of liking where we lived and everything, and I just remember too at that house going for walks with my mother. It was the first time she actually like put in a bit of effort to bond with me a bit, and she was on this kick of always wanting to go for walks, I guess after she had my brother and stuff, and of course you want to get rid of like the baby weight and whatnot, so I was like all game for it. And some of these walks I was trying to, like, she'd be going. But that was the first time I felt my mom actually reaching out to kind of bond and connect with me. So I was happy with that, because trying to get to that friend's house that we were in that house living for only a year, I'd have to walk a nice ways. So I was all game for walking wherever I wanted to go. I had to walk anyway. So I didn't mind that, walking with her. But it's probably, like I said, the first time I remember her actually trying to connect with me at some level and bond. And if that meant going for a walk, even though some days it was freezing cold and I did not want to go, but I went just because it meant spending some time with her. But I also remember in that house there was a time, it was a thunderstorm, and I was only in a towel. I was just after getting out of the bath. My mother said there was something outside. I was like, what? Something outside? In a thunderstorm? She wanted me to just get it right quick. And I had a bit of a fear of thunder and lightning from when we lived at the townhouse. When we lived at the townhouse, they set up a tent out in the backyard for my siblings and my cousins were over, and there was a thunderstorm. I started to hear the thunder and see the lightning and got extremely scared and ran inside, and I didn't like it. It made me, that's where the building block for that started, of me being scared of thunder and lightning. And I wasn't extremely bad at that point. It just, as a little kid, it was something that just made me nervous. But this time, I don't know why she found it funny and entertaining, but when we were in the nice house, I remember she said, oh, there's something outside, can you go out and just get it right quick, because it's starting to rain and it's, the weather's getting gross. I said, okay. I can't remember what she told me to get. I just recall she told me to go out and get something. So I went outside, and I remember turning around and her locking the door. And I looked around, there was nothing outside. She was there in the doorway laughing, and tears were running down my face, freaking out. Can you let me in? I'm only in a towel out here. And the neighbor's house was like right on top of us. So that made me extremely uncomfortable, because I was afraid the neighbor was gonna like see me stood outside in a towel. So I started freaking out. And then I heard the thunder and seen the lightning, and that's when I really started to freak out. And she was still in the doorway, just stood there laughing and thinking it was hilarious. And I don't know, this memory is something to this day. I even remember talking to my husband about this memory, because I don't know, I guess it just stuck with me and upset me or whatever. But she still wouldn't open it, and then I was still outside just in a towel, and I remember her leaving the doorway then, and I'm still here trying to get in and open it, and she's not coming back, and it's starting to really rain. I could hear the thunder, see the lightning. So I ran down the steps that were there to the patio that would go to like a ramp. There was like a little gazebo, and I remember tucking in under the stairs, just a towel on, and just sobbing my eyes out and crying. I don't even remember how long I was there, but I just remember then eventually getting up, going back up the steps, trying the door, and it was unlocked. And then I went back in the house, and ever since then, thunder and lightning really, I don't like it. And not only that, like I said, I was in grade 4 at the time. I wasn't that old. And to be wrapped up in just a towel then outside, stood up, where your neighbors could see, and you're a kid, a small kid, like, I don't know what she was thinking. But no, that house, like I said, we were in it for a year, and then we up and moved yet again, and then we went to another house. Alright. And that's where I'm going to end off this video here today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm about to go into the next house now. About to move again. Alright. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, fam.